everyone to Give God 90 Radio on Demand. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90. Thank you for spending just a little bit of your most valuable resource with me today, your time. A lot of places they will tell you, oh, if you'll send me your money, I'll give you this, or I'll have this, and I'll do that for you. I just appreciate your time. For all the new folks out there who are continually joining us, and we have a growing number of people around the world who are joining us on all kinds of platforms, it seems. Please, you can download the Give God 90 app, and you can partake in going back through all the archives, getting notified when something new comes out, and just hopefully be blessed by what we have to say and what we're trying to present, trying to convince you to live the way that the Almighty Creator designed you to live. That's what we're trying to do. Is I'll be up front with my agenda, just trying to convince you to live the way God designed you to live. Okay, it's that simple. Some of the ways you can help with that is there's a couple of books out there: Tradition to Truth, One Man's Search for Honest Answers, and God's Universe, God's Rules. Both of those available at Barnes & Noble's, Amazon, wherever fine books are sold. And, of course, currently, depending on when you're listening to this, you might not be able to go to a bookstore and get them because we are in the middle of the corona quarantine, we could say. And that's okay. That's okay. We have a lot of people that are listening to this just because they can't get out and go other places. And that's sad but true. And I appreciate you all spending just a little bit of time listening to this, and I hope it blesses you. I want to get in today to a couple of things that I have a little bit of problem with the way it's being presented in the modern churches, and even for my Jewish listeners, some rabbinic, how do I want to say this? Some of the rabbis that differ from other rabbis present this in error. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to say they're completely wrong. I'm saying that some of them present it not the best way to represent it. Now, First Fruits was yesterday, and the reason I didn't put this out yesterday is I don't want to go into specifically what they are or what it is. The Feast of First Fruit, I really don't want to get into that this year. Hopefully next year, if things are back to normal and I can really dig into this a little deeper with you folks, I will do that. But for right now, I want to just kind of touch on it and explain what it is and why it's being presented in error. If we look at Leviticus chapter 23, and don't worry, my throat here is not COVID-19. It is simply some spring allergies that I am sadly suffering. But they're not terrible. They're not terrible. They're a lot better than they have been in the past. So I'm doing good. If we look at Leviticus 23, and we go down to verse 9, it says that Jehovah spoke to Moses, and he said, "Speak to the children of Israel and tell them, when you have come into the land that I'm going to give you, you reap its harvest, you are to bring an omer." Now that is a measure, okay, of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. Now this is time specific, because it's timed right at Passover, okay, which is in the first month of the year, in the spring, and it's specific to barley. All right? Now, we need to be very, very precise about this. This isn't talking about potatoes. This isn't talking about dates or figs. This is specific to barley. Very important. Barley was a very important crop in ancient Israel. You're going to take some of it, describe it as a sheaf. Some describe it as a bushel. Some, it is a measurement, and it's not a huge measurement. Okay, you couldn't really bake a good loaf of bread out of what they're bringing, because they're bringing it on the stalk. But you're going to bring that to the priest, and in verse 11, he will wave that omer before Jehovah to be accepted for you. On the day after Shabbat, the priest will wave it. Now, this is the weekly Shabbat. So the day after that is going to always be what we call Sunday today, the first day of the week. That's when it's going to happen. In verse 12, on the day when you wave the omer, you are to offer a male lamb without blemish, 1 year old, as a burnt offering to Jehovah. The grain offering with it should be 2/10 of an ephah, another measurement, okay, of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Jehovah for a soothing aroma. Its drink offering with it should be a quarter of a gallon of wine. So you're going to bring a quart of wine. You're going to have the grain. You're going to have the sheaf of barley. All right? And you're going to have a lamb. And you're going to burn it all up. Nobody gets to eat it. You're going to burn it. The Creator gets to smell it. That is what the first fruit is. Now, why is this important? We'll get to in a second. You're not to eat bread roasted of grain or fresh grain until this day. So you can't make anything from the first harvest until after this is done. Now, it goes on from there about counting up to Shavuot. Here's the thing. First fruits being specific to barley tells them, barley is set by the calendar. It tells you when it's ripe, so you know when to begin timing for the months. You know when to have Passover available. You know when to have these other feasts available. And it's very, very, how do I want to say this? Important in that what it does is it looks forward to what's to come. You're giving this little bit now, expecting to get a lot later. If you can draw that into, I'm going to give you a penny now so I can get $1 later. I have expressed this often as I'm going to use my blessings to bless you now so that I can get blessings from a lot more people later. You see how that works? So why then do we get so confused about, I got my first job and I got my first paycheck. I've got to donate so much of that to God. That's not what first fruits is about. We get today first fruits and tithes so confused. We get tithes and offerings confused as well. Don't think for a second that a modern Christian pastor understands this stuff, because most of them don't. There are a few that get it. First fruits is the first fruit offering of barley. Now, if you were, let's say, not involved with a barley harvest, the only reason this was important to you is because you're going to benefit later. Let's say maybe you were someone who was very, very good at weaving linen. Okay, then this feast specifically did not apply to you, but it was important to you because this first fruit being given just a little bit away, it goes back to the Almighty, then He would bless everyone later. So if you were a weaver of fine linen, you would have those flax stalks to make linen out of. Okay? That's why it was important to you. It wasn't directed at you, but it was important to you because you would be blessed by it at a later date in a way that it would affect you. Food back then was extremely important. We're learning that lesson all over again now. Food is extremely important. Too many people, especially in the United States and other developed areas of the world, don't understand how important food production really is. They're too used to going to a grocery store and having it available. They don't know what it's like to grow their own food. They don't know what it's like to harvest their own food. They don't know what it's like to process their own food. You know, if this is going to sound funny, but if you handed somebody a live chicken and say, make me a chicken soup, the majority of people in the world today, in the developed countries especially, wouldn't know how to do it. If you handed someone a basket of carrots with the top still on them and said, you know, I'd really like a carrot cake, I'm not sure they could process those carrots to give you a carrot cake. That's how far out of touch with our agricultural roots many people have come. So I want to kind of tie this in a little bit with tithes and offerings. Now, if you remember, tithes were those that it is that 10% of what we give, but it is not designed to go to a building. Okay? I need to go back to all of the tribes, all of the children of Jacob. And if you remember how they were stretched out across the land, every one of them inherited a piece of land except for the Levites. The Levites were to be dispersed among the other tribes. They were to live as an example to everyone around them to be how to live. They were not allowed to own property. They weren't allowed to own, they could live in a house, okay, that was provided for them. But that 10% tithe from the other nations, the other tribes, that is what fed and clothed the tribe of Levi as they were the example to the other nations. Now, they were not designed by God to be pious and upright. They were to be very humble. They were to live very meekly. They were to be very thankful people. Now, we see in the Second Temple period that kind of changed, and it really changed after the Greek invasion. Just as the Romans were coming in is when they really changed that. And excuse me, what actually happened was after the exile and they came back, some of the Levitical priesthood decided, well, things have changed. We can own land now. And they got to be large landowners, which was not allowed. And there were also people involved in the priesthood who were not Levitical. Okay, they were not from the tribe of Levi. That was not supposed to have been allowed. So this whole confusion after the Babylonian exile and who came back and what happened and all of those things, it was a big political shift. And what we wind up with is now we have this priesthood who is, instead of humble, they are elite. See, you had started out with these priests who were supposed to be the most righteous among them. And they became, unfortunately, many of them, the most corrupt among them. And that's sad. That's very, very sad. Because what we see is instead of someone who was thankful to receive their 10%, now they're pious. Okay? They have become rich. And it's almost like if we go back in the history of the United States and we see the old country doctors, many of us at my age grew up with Gunsmoke, and they remember old Doc and how he was very well liked in the community, but he was a very humble person. He had a horse and carriage and would go out among the people to heal them. And if we could use that parallel as the priest prior to the exile. After they came back, now we have these priests who are, pious is about the best word I can think of. They thought they were better than everybody else. And we look at doctors today, and we don't see them living meekly in a small office above, or a small apartment above their office, do we? We don't see them going out door to door healing people. We see people trying to get in to see them, stacked on top of each other often. And that's just not the way it's designed to be. I've said this before as well. For me, in my opinion, of a doctor is they are a contractor. My body is the building that I hire them to fix, to repair. And they don't like my attitude about that because they think they should know how to treat me without me, having any say in it. And I don't like that. It's my building. It's my body. I want it fixed. If I get hurt, if I break a leg, set my bone, fix it. It's that simple. But I have to agree in my building to keep it maintained properly too, right? If it was a car and it had a gasoline engine, I'm not going to put diesel in it. If it has a diesel engine, I'm not going to put gasoline in it. You know what I'm saying, right? I hope. You know how all those things work. So just think of it that way. From prior to the exile to after the exile, we see a huge shift in the way that the priests presented themselves and the way they lived. It was a big difference. Big difference. One extreme to the other, we could say. Now, the tithes were brought specifically to keep the priests fed, clothed, keep their families fed and clothed, give them a place to live, make sure they were warm, so that they had the opportunity to be the example to the other people. They were to teach. They were to do things. Now, there is a clause in there that says, a priest can only serve so many years in the temple. It doesn't mean that he gets to go sit in a rocking chair for the rest of his life. What that means is he's not longer in the temple, but now he's expected to teach the younger Levites who are coming up how to serve in the temple. They're trying to teach them, depending on their courses, this is what you do at this time of the year, this is what you do at that time of the year. They were teaching them their jobs so that when they get to actually serve in the temple, an apprentice, they're not just flying blind. They know what to expect. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what's happening. That was their job. They were to be the example to the other people who were to be the example to the world. It's that simple. Offerings, on the other hand, those are the things that were given freely. You didn't expect anything back. The story about the widow and the two mites, her two little half-cent pieces, if we can use that term. There's probably a term many of you haven't heard in a long time. She puts these two very, very minuscule little bits in because her heart's in the right place. She is the one who wants to help somebody else that might be worse off than she is. That's what an offering is. But today we have many, many modern Christian pastors who say, you've got to give your 10% because you got to pay for the building, you got to pay my salary, you got to do this, we got to keep the lights on, we got to pay the insurance, we got to do this. No, that's not what it's designed for. In God's universe, God's rules, I lay this out specifically. When you are part of a organization, you accept part of their responsibility, or I should say you accept your part of the responsibility to make sure that the building is maintained if you own a building, or the rent is paid, insurances are kept up. If you pay a leader, you are responsible for your portion of what they are paid. Big difference to a tithe. Now, if let's put it this way. We don't have 10% of our people today in most churches who are willing to be the one who is working off the gracious tithing of others, right? That's just not the way it is. Our many of the pastors I know, and some of them I like, they like living in nice houses. They like having nice things. They enjoy. They don't want to be the example to the people. They like to be the teacher, but what they don't want to be is the example. And a lot of these people are really nice folks. I think the world of them. But let's face it, they're not willing to do what it takes to actually be the example. And that's tough. Trust me, I know it's tough. I do it. When you are the example to everybody else, you are under more scrutiny than anyone else. Many pastors today that I know like to be put up on that pedestal. That's not where you want to be. Where you want to be is down below, serving. You want to know what a good pastor does? A good pastor doesn't look for somebody else to come in and clean the building. He's the one that's going to be scrubbing the toilets. A good pastor doesn't pawn anything off on anybody else. He does it. A good pastor understands it's not his job to go out and recruit people to join that particular worship community. That job belongs to the worshipers. Okay? A good pastor understands he serves the people who take care of him. And he serves them in such a way that they want other people to come join. I think that's one of the reasons that Give God 90 is growing the way it's growing. I really honestly believe that that's why it's happening. When I look at the number of people that view these podcasts, when I look at the number of people who view our Facebook Live broadcasts, I am truly, honestly humbled because Myra and I don't have an exorbitant lifestyle. We know, we got. I always say we were really, really good at being poor, and I'd really like to get good at being rich. Just saying. Now I'm joking, okay? Although I do, like to have enough money to pay my bills. I don't view what we do as pastoring. I don't view what we do as being an example all the time either. What I'm trying to do is simply convince everyone who hears me to open their Bible, look at what it says to do in your life, whatever you might be doing, and do that. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be, that world evangelist leader that flies around on his own personal jet plane. That's not who I am. That's not what this should be about. What I'm trying to do is convince each and every person who hears me to live the life that your Creator designed you to live. If He designed you to be a nurse, be the best nurse you can be. If He designed you to be a doctor, be the best doctor you can be. If He designed you, and this is going to sound funny, if He designed you to serve your fellow man by getting up early and riding on the back of a garbage truck and taking those cans and throwing them away properly, you know what? Be the best one you can be, because I'm going to be honest with you. We need you out there doing those things. We need people who are willing to sweep the parking lots and sweep the floors. We don't need to be entertained all the time. But we need people who are willing to get up early and stock shelves in a store. so that we can go shop. We need people who can sweep the floor. We need people who can actually know what it is to smile when they've been standing on their feet for 6 or 7 or 8 hours in a row, checking people out in a retail line. We need people who can get up early in the morning and dump garbage cans in the back of a truck. We need people to do that. We don't always need people who can and now I'm not going to say that having the skill to play a major sport, I'm not downplaying their skills. But I don't need to watch somebody dribble a basketball or pass a football or kick a soccer ball. But I need somebody to make sure that my shelves are stocked in my store. I need those truck drivers to deliver product. I need the people who are mining the steel and the coal and the other things to make sure that we have power and we have trucks that can deliver product and that we can have all of those things. Those are the most essential jobs in the world. Those are the people we absolutely cannot live without. If the Almighty has chosen you to give you the skills to either drive a truck or to be able to stand and swipe items across a checkout line with a smile on your face, that's what you're good at. That's what your calling in this world is. That's wonderful. If your calling is to be able to wash windows or mow grass, whatever it happens to be, those are the people that actually make the world run. The CEOs of the company, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can understand that their skill set is making sure that the decisions that they make is able to pay for the secretary. It's able to pay for the janitor. It's able to pay for the window washer. It's able to pay the electric bill that keeps, the coal miner or the solar panel guy working. That's what a CEO's job is. It's to run that company in such a profitable way that not only are they profitable, but they pay for everybody else. And I know that years ago, the term was trickle-down economics. Well, it's not trickle-down. It's not trickle-down at all. It trickles up. Because without each and every one of you out there who are driving a truck or sweeping a floor, doing whatever it is you're doing, you are the people that make his job possible. Because without you, he doesn't have a company to run. Without the housekeeping professionals, without the laundry professionals, without the certified nursing assistants, without the lab assistants, a hospital is inoperable. They cannot operate anyway because they need people to empty the trash cans and sweep the floors. They need people to change the bed sheets. They need people to care on the most basic level, whether they're involved with the patient or not. And the doctors, they have the biggest bills too because they went to school the longest. Let's face it, without the folks who keep the place running, there's no place for those doctors to work. It takes each and every one of us with all of the skills that the Almighty designs us with to apply those skills. And just like first fruits, we give that little bit right now so that we can be blessed with a whole lot later on down the line. First fruit, tithes, offerings, they're all important, but they all have their place, just like each and every one of us do. Just like each and every one of us do. Our job is to find that place, our skill, and use it the way God designed us to use it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I hope this has been a blessing to you. see you next week.